Hey everybody, Stu Smith and Jeff Nichols here again with another Tactical Fitness Report. And this one is one we're going to talk about injuries. And these are very common injuries that tend to happen to all of us. In fact, when I was making this list, I was like, yep, done that. So it just happens, right? Now, it doesn't mean necessarily an injury that is going to put you down for a year because you need surgery. I mean, we will get into that, but it could just be little nagging injuries that are going to affect your next 2 or 3 workouts that you do.
Yep.
All of those matter, right? And we can avoid a lot of those by just being a little smarter with how we progress into our training programs. And, real quick, Jeff, my number one on this list of kind of overtraining or underprepared, or we can even call it under recovery. But for the sake of argument, let's just assume, you have the perfect diet and you have the perfect sleep every night. And so the big culprit here is how your training is going to screw you up.
Yep. Right. And so also assume that these people, they're following a program that has been yielding them consistent, reliable, and predictable benefits, or like the adaptation, or these people are clearly on their way of reaching their goals.
Oh yeah.
Right? Because that's the majority of the people. Majority of people are working, especially if they're following either one of our, both our programs, they're progressing properly.
Yes.
Right. Predictably, all that stuff. So we're thinking, okay, what do people typically add to their training program that will, screw it up, right? Right. For a couple of weeks or a couple of months. There's multiple things that Stu and I, again, this is coming from emails and messages and such. And again, we'll get into the depth of these, but one of those examples is like jujitsu. How does that work in? Like, is that a different physical activity? How is it treated? So that's really where this is being prompted, is like, what are some things that are common? What's too much? What's too little? Whatever, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so I would say these are supplemental things that you add to programs that can be too much, right? I mean, I tend to put a lot of volume in my workouts for a reason, but I progress to that volume, over time. So a big addition, like Jeff was just stating, was, adding, hey, I like doing martial arts, right? Well, here's the problem with martial arts when you are training really hard is you tend to go into those martial arts with that same type of training intensity, right? So you're going to get a good workout there. So as far as recovery is concerned, probably need to focus a little more on your recovery and nutrition, to balance out that caloric expenditure. But here's the problem. You tend to hit things that are harder than your body, right? Whether you're practicing against a human and a bone, or you are practicing against pads or ground or whatever, you can really hurt things from your fist. I've seen broken hands, from guys that are doing MMA work. I've seen, dislocated elbows from arm bars.
Like Mike Ritland tore his tricep almost completely off the bone.
Mm.
And that's the thing, is like, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of what ifs, and there's a lot of depends, but the end, and it's like, this is a conversation Stu and I had a couple of days ago off camera. It was just like, because I got back into jiu-jitsu, for example, and I was doing it a couple evenings each week. And then, but it was just, what is it? I was stuck to certain timelines where I had to train, right? Because that's the business. That's their business. I had to show up. And it's like, So I scheduled my timeline around that, which was fine. But then I was like, oh my God, like adding another 90 minutes of work to the end of the day, where like I'd have clients here just like you. It's like, I'm training twice a day, these clients, and I'm doing it with them just as you do.
Yeah.
And I'm doing jujitsu in the evenings. It's like, oh, that's like, is that enough? Too much? Whatever. Like, what's that balance? And you didn't know until I got in. Then you're going to find out what that balance is. And so that's the thing too, is we can recommend not doing certain things, but also understand we're coming from a point of going, well, be aware that might be an issue. So just begin to evaluate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just as, we discussed in a previous podcast about, it's time to start taking yourself seriously, with your training and recovery. You know, there comes a time as you get closer to your selection, you need to maintain a certain level of ability, not only for your job when you are active duty, but also, for the events that you are preparing for and the, selection that you're preparing for. It is very difficult to do that, with the bumps and bruises and breaks often that occur when you're doing these combative sports.
Yeah. It's not to say that you won't have, it's like, there's combatives in the teams. There's that will be addressed when you get to that point. That's the thing is like, well, I thought jujitsu would be good. And we're not picking on jujitsu.
Oh, no, it's great.
At all. It's just, you got to understand that for many of you, or at least this is the impression that Stu and I are both under. So for many of you, 18 to 20-year-old young men and women are looking at going, oh, I got to be proficient in all of this stuff and I got to do it right now. And so not only you're in weight training, but you're also running and you're like, oh, well, I figured jujitsu would be great for spec war. So a lot of you would start jujitsu and then it's like, you never even had like a ramp up. You never even had like essentially what we consider like a workup to it. You just, all of a sudden you're like, bam, you're intensely training hard and all these new aspects in the period, like, and it's all new within 6, 8 months or a year.
Yeah.
Like, you understand, it's like Stu and I have been doing this for a long time. And even me, like adding jujitsu in at this level with my level of competence, I still have got to be really aware of it.
Oh yeah. And you wrestle somebody that has less experience than you, right? People don't want to wrestle you or do jujitsu with you if you are, less experienced than them, because here's why. You're going to go a little bit too far on that arm bar and hurt somebody, or and vice versa. Right. So
yeah, it's that sport. People have a hard time exhibiting control.
Yeah.
And that's the name of the game right there. The sport is control.
I mean, like I said, it's a great sport. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, as you get closer to your date, you may not be able to handle in your timeline a 6-month injury and rehab that could occur from, any of these type of issues.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, jiu-jitsu is, again, just an example. It's not it's not an issue at all.
Yeah. I put it this way.
Balance can be done.
Yeah, put it this way. I've seen with karate, guys break their shin. I've seen boxing break their fist. Jiu-jitsu, ankles and elbows and shoulders. MMA, fists. So it's just one of those things that it's part of the sport. I love the sport. I think it's great, and there's a time and a place for it. It's just as you get closer to your selection, it's one of those things that is a very common injury. But here's probably the number one. And this list that I'm about to go down, as we go through this is, just things I've seen over the last couple decades of people who are at that point of getting ready to go, and then they throw in a 6-month injury that delays them, for what they had planned, right? And sometimes that's either a hit or miss. You're either go or no go. Some accessions into the military programming can, put you on hold and let you, rehab and get into that.
That's becoming more and more rare, it seems.
Yes. Yeah, it's pretty tough. But number one, too much running. Supplemental running plans will cause injuries like compartment syndrome, shin splints, stress fractures, tendinitis in the joints. If you're lucky, that's all you get. But these can take anywhere from weeks, months, even a year to fully recover from, depending on the severity of that injury.
Yeah. Don't undervalue that ramp up, right? And I guess that definition is like, everyone has a starting point. Understands like, well, how am I supposed to do this? I don't start. Like, we're just saying, all these things you want to accomplish, you begin to accomplish, they shouldn't all be on your plate the first couple of weeks. It's like, don't get a gym membership and get a membership for the pool and some new running shoes all at once, and you've never done any of the three, right? Like, as far as like, I'm saying, of course we've all ran, but again, we're talking about if we can get you guys start training thoughtfully at the beginning, this course for you all, this is going to be an amazing adventure for you, where you're just going to have so very little plateaus and so very few injuries if you just do it smartly.
Yeah. Yeah. The big thing on running is, if you haven't run in a while, let's say 6 months, right? And you used to run a lot, you probably have some abilities that can go into running again, and maybe not be a true beginner running, but, still, 15, 20 miles a week is probably still too much for you, at that
Yeah,
point. So
for sure.
pull
For
back
sure.
a little bit. Let's focus on, you got to get to the training. So let's focus on 1.5 speed.
Yeah, you got to get 4 miles in before you get to 10. You
Yeah.
got to get it to 10 before you can get to 15 miles a week.
Yeah. You won't ever get to buds if you don't pass 1.5 miles. So let's
Right.
focus on that 1.5 mile speed,
Right. For sure.
first,
And understand, yeah, the durability that it takes to get there, folks, it's not short term. And that's what we're saying is like, we're not saying don't train hard. We're saying like build up to it and you won't ever really have to worry about these shin splints and these injuries.
Yeah, it's all progression, logical progression. I'm not going to beat that one up. You've heard us say it many, many times, just
Too much mileage too soon, for
yeah.
example. Yeah.
Yeah. Put it this way. If you say to yourself, I used to run in high school, right? And now you're over 25 with having not run very much.
Yeah.
You are a beginner.
You are not a high school runner anymore. Yeah.
You are a beginner, and you should start and treat yourself like a beginner, when it comes to running.
And if you do, you will find out your body will acclimate and adapt so fast.
Yeah.
You won't run into injuries. You'll be like, oh, it's like I never stopped running. Yes, because you did it correctly, and your body's you allowed your body to prepare for it.
Yep. Exactly. So how about this one? Too much heavy lifting.
Yep. It's the same sort of work volume issue with running. It's like, it's not that we don't want you to lift heavy relative to your capabilities. It's just that people tend to just do that too often.
Well, yeah. I mean, when I even say too much, I just mean too much weight, right?
Yeah.
So, you get into the gym and, if you really like powerlifting, you came from a powerlifting background, I get it. You're already strong enough. You probably don't need to really work on your 1 rep maxes anymore.
Nope.
At this point, so, maintaining some strength, working on your muscle stamina, that's probably where your focus needs to be. But where most people screw up is typically technique issues when they're lifting. They're novice, don't really know the technique, and they're just lifting too much. And you will see that in exercises from bench press to military press to deadlifts. The last thing you want to do is hurt your back, because now you're dealing with, one of those things.
Not undoing that.
You're not undoing that.
And
then another one, I'm sorry, is weighted pull-ups. I've seen torn biceps from people getting too zealous with, hey, let's put on 45 pounds. Let's put on 60 pounds. Let's see if you can do 75 pounds. Let's do 2 plates and do a weighted pull-up.
Right?
Yeah.
Even though it's a pull-up, right? That falls into the same category as squatting too heavy.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, folks. And again, I'm here to tell you right now, doing excessive weighted pull-ups will not improve your pull-ups.
No.
Right?
It's going to tear your bicep.
It will improve. Okay. Because you ought to understand all the pull-up testing protocols for all military and law enforcement have either a time limit or to failure. That's the limit, right? Those are the 2 limits. Because those 2 are the limits, because time is a value in that, we're not talking absolute strength. We're talking strength endurance.
Yes.
So
yep.
Now, do we want to do some weighted pull-ups at time or some resisted stuff with lat? Yes, we do.
Sure.
But that's not just in the same sense of Stu and I will say, just doing pull-ups all the time without additional resistance is going to have its end state as well. You got to look at everything as like a skill. Like, weighted pull-ups is a skill within a skill.
Yes. Yeah. And, it's going to be part of your test in the future too. You will have a 20-pound weighted pull-up test.
Yeah. That's what the command is. It's a 25-pound weighted pull-up for a minimum of 10 or 12. If I may, that's the minimum standard for the PRT and the internal one.
Right.
So it's bench press 225, pull-ups with the 25-pound plate, a 5-mile run, and something else. I forget what they are, but that's one of the internal legacy tests.
Yeah,
so
that's a good one.
Yeah, that's I did. Man, when was that? They're still doing it. I'm sure they still are, but it's just one of those things that they're collecting additional data from, and that's what they are.
Yes.
Right? It's a good sort of like variance.
Yeah, your strength. How strong are you, and can you still run?
Yep, for sure.
You know, which is really turns into a strength endurance.
Yeah,
combination, not an absolute strength issue. Yeah.
And that's really, by volume, we'll call it, like, that's what the military and law enforcement is asking to do. It's like, are there times you're going to have to express maximal force and strength? Yes. The bulk of it's going to go on to, strength endurance and having a good bit of aerobic endurance to buffer and move, like big, heavy body plus some weight, get over a distance. We got to be able to do that well and repeat it.
Yeah. So the big issue here is, once again, I've seen guys, get into the weight room, and it's real easy to fall into this, I call it positive peer pressure, but at some point it can really hurt you. You get into the weight room, everybody's lifting heavy, and you're like, I haven't lifted heavy in a while. Let's see how I do. I do it all the time. I shouldn't say I do it all the time. I have done it several times, and it usually, I'd say 50-50%, I am either more sore than I should have been, or I hurt myself.
Yeah.
Right. And I've seen many people do that prior to, whether it was now they got to, limp around through the first couple of weeks of selection with a pulled hamstring because they, did something wrong with their heavy squat, right? Or shoulder on a bench press or military press. But how about this one? Let's go to the next one. And this one's just too many repetitions.
Yeah.
Right? We're talking about calisthenic repetitions, pull-up, push-ups, sit-ups, dips, squats, flutter kicks, you name it, grinder style PT workouts that you're going to see, just because, you see guys doing hundreds of repetitions, and it's good to be able to build the volume up to where you can handle that. But where people screw up, and I've seen it so many times, is they do these as a daily event.
Yeah.
Not you got to treat high volume calisthenics the same way you would treat heavy weightlifting.
Yep.
And you give yourself a day, even 2 days before you even work that same muscle group again.
And to be clear, this is not the same thing as, like, for example, like Mitch Aguiar, every morning he wakes up and does 25 dips. That's not what we're talking about.
No.
We're talking about the guys that, like, every day are doing max push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, and repeating that.
Hundreds of repetitions. Hundreds of repetitions, yes, absolutely. Yeah, you wake up and you do 25 push-ups, 10 pull-ups when you wake up, but you can already do 100 or do 25 pull-ups. You're talking about sub-max, loosen the joints effort. That's completely different.
That's a different acclimation of load, and you're like, oh, there's a benefit there, a real one, a consistent one.
Yeah.
But again, that's not what we're talking about. So, for me, the way that I balance that, okay, what does that mean? For me, it means a bunch of different things, right? But one of the things that I use in this context to, like, really manage it is like, I look at, okay, let's say I'm going to do, let's just for argument's sake, I'm going to do 10 sets of something, right? I'm going to make sure that those 10 sets are as closely to evenly spread out. Like, I don't want to go first set at 25 and never be able to get to 25 again, like 25 reps, 15, 12, 8, 2, 2, 2, 2. Right now. Like, I just want to go, okay, I can come out of the gate and do 25. But if I do 9 reps, I can keep 9 reps all the way through, and that 9 times 10 gets me 90 reps. If I come out of the gate at 25, I'm only able to 16, 12, 4, 4, 4, 4. At the end, I've only got 72 reps of those 10 sets. So it's like, I like to do this mental math and go, okay, because the tactical population for me is trying to go, I got to get to target. And then when I get to target, I got to perform as if like I just got off the helo.
Yes.
So in my head, I'm segmenting my reps. That's what you see in my programs, or it's not 3 sets of 10. It's like, why does it say 9 sets of 7?
Right.
So the math is like, okay, 9 times 7, X number of reps. Look at the week before and after. You're going to see a difference in load. like a linear difference in load. And so I know Stu does the same thing.
Yeah,
so
I like those supersets too. Yep.
That's why I say leave bullets in your chamber, right? Always leave a bullet or two in your chamber. So that way you can repeat, because that's what sport is. And that's what tactics. Like, we want you to be repeatable, reliable, predictable, measurable, even at times. Right. And that's what we're doing. The measurement is like success. Like, well, it's not difficult. If you can get to set 9 and 10 and move just like you did set 1 within reason, that's work.
Oh yeah, that's work. And you next time you can make it, you can progress to more reps.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that. Being able to do 10 sets of 25 is quite impressive.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that is some serious volume. That's
impressive.
Super impressive.
So it's like, you're not going to get there until you can get, 10 sets of 12.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love those. I love sub-max supersets. That's a way to build your volume up, and, and you can kind of track it too. Last time I did this workout, I failed at set 6,
Right. And you just manipulate your rest period. You go, hey, I'm going to give myself 8 seconds of rest in between and see how long I can maintain it.
Yep. Love it.
Oh, that didn't work. Let's go to 12 seconds. What's the difference? It's 4, but it matters.
Yeah.
And it gets you invested, and then you don't feel like I'm resting too long. You're like actively engaged in this workout, even when you're resting, because you're like watching the clock going, I'm going to challenge this.
Yeah. I love the pyramids for that reason too, and it's a great assessment tool. Last week I got to 8, this week I get to 9, next week maybe I can get to 10, it's just one of those progressions. And then you do the math. The cool thing about a pyramid, if you go up to 1 to 9 and then back down to 1, just square to the top number, that's how many reps you did.
Yeah.
We did 81 reps. You do that, 1 to 10, back down to 1, 100 reps. Easy day.
Yep. And you've accumulated that volume in a very reasonable timeline. That's why it's so substantial, because it's like, hey, if you had to get 1,000 reps of something, but your first set had to be a maximal effort set, it would prolong that timeline a ton.
Significantly.
If you do a bunch of sub-maximal stuff, that's where it's basically doing a reverse split on a run. Hey, you got a 3-mile run. You come out nice and easy.
Yep.
Then you speed up a little bit more. Yep. You speed up as much as you can to finish off that last mile. You're like, holy crap, I just PR'd. Yeah.
Nice.
Weight training is the same thing. You're just doing a reverse split. These pyramids, all these sort of things are something. It gives you something to measure yourself off daily without just saying more.
Yep. You know where I see people screw up on this one is they jump into a Murph workout. Everybody's familiar with the Murph. 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats. And they've never done 100 pull-ups in a workout before ever, or 300 squats ever. Maybe they've done 200 push-ups in a workout. That's not that too much, but still, if you've never done any of those and you're going to jump into that, I mean, you're asking yourself, to have tendinitis. You're going to have muscle strains. You're going to have joint pain for probably a week, depending on, what, exercise program you're doing. But, that's one of those exercise workouts. I love doing them. In fact, you get so good at them, at some point you can actually warm up with a Murph. That is, you get through the Murph and then you go do your run, you go do your swim, you go add a ruck on the back end of it. That's progression, but you don't just jump into that and be able to do it and think you're going to, be stronger for it. You're actually going to be weaker for it because you're going to be hurt for about 3 or 5, 6 days.
Well, it's if you put it in the context of something that most people, like I just started doing this and it made sense to some, so hopefully it does. It's like, let's put this in a school setting. Let's instead of say weight training, let's say math, right?
Okay.
If you start out with math, because I had this conversation with my son, he's in 6th grade, he's taking advanced math, 8th grade math. And so it's like, okay, he's having trouble. He got to the Pythagorean theorem, all these sort of things. And I was like, okay, I was able to work with him because I understand math well. It's like, okay, but he was complaining and I'm like, okay, listen, I get it's difficult. And so I had this idea. It's like, well, this is what's happening to a lot of people with weight training. They're starting off at mentally, they're starting way off down the line.
Oh yeah. They're starting at calculus.
Yeah.
They don't even know algebra.
1 + 1. and I know it's frustrating to people, but you as adults, you guys are all adults, 18 to 22, you're adults, because you don't have to go through this maturation mental thing you're already kind of in it. You're in puberty. You're past it, through it, in it. If you just start off slow and progress, you'll achieve everything you want physically. And that's the thing. Let's say you got to treat yourself like if you're injured or you're old or you're a beginner. Don't look at it as a negative thing that you're a beginner. You're a mature.
We all were beginners.
Start off simple, and you'll see that you'll progress as an adult, as you expect. You don't bite off more than you can chew to begin with.
No, that's a very great point. Great point. I unfortunately have seen many people who just don't give themselves enough time to grow, right? Yeah. And a lot of them are leaving before they've even finished growing. You leave for buds at 17, 18 years old, you're still growing. Yeah. Your bones are soft. You wonder why you're getting shin splints, because now you're running. Your bones are still soft and growing. So
did you know Chad Wright by chance, former SEAL? He's a ultra marathoner. He just finished a race yesterday, actually. So he joined the Navy. He was in the Team Never Quit podcast. Most recently, he was joined the Navy. When he went to his dive physical at Buds, he was in Buds. They found a 7 centimeter cyst on his heart. Jeez. They medically discharged him 2 months later. It took him a year. He had surgery just to get that fixed to go back in.
Holy crap.
Had the same dive medical officer that was like jaw dropped, and he came back to his physical, made it through Buds. And he himself says, had he had the opportunity to go through Buds at 18, he wouldn't have made it. He goes, I'm pretty sure I would have quit. I'm sure.
I know I wouldn't have. But
right?
It's impressive to see an 18-year-old kid make it through. It really is.
People, 18-year-old kids take it personally offensive when people say 18-year-olds don't have a shot. It has nothing to do with you as a person. It has to do with your physiology.
Yeah.
Give yourself time to grow up mentally, emotionally, right? I don't know what that looks like, because there are 18-year-olds that get through and are like, right? Holy crap. So, but the math says that if you wait until you're older, 22, you have, 36% better chance or something, like the statistic they use?
I need to figure that out eventually. I know the math.
I think there's a stat within the stats that said, like with it, Buds, it doesn't say you have a better chance. It just, you can look and see that it correlates, like, the people that are 24, like 22 to 24, they're going to do better.
Yeah.
Typically. They're going to do physically better, because on the male side, specifically outside of gymnastics, right, for women, like, look at all the professional sports. Look at the age bracket of the men and women that are breaking all world records for all the different sports. They're all in the same age group.
Yeah.
Right? They're all in their mid-20s, pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So you are at a physical advantage compared to people that are 18. Again, it's funny when people, like, if I were encounter my 18-year-old me now, I would just thrash him, except for one aspect. He'd be able to run circles around me.
True. And recover much faster.
But I'm saying just from a physical output, he can't do anything that I can right now. Right. Emotionally, physically, or even like a learned skill.
Yeah.
So that's what you got to look at yourself. It's like your 18-year-old self. The challenge is like, like you guys are busting your ass at 18, 19. Imagine you at 20, 21.
Yes.
After all this work you put in. That's scary. That's awesome.
Yeah, agreed. All right. So here's another level. And I've seen this one happen way too many times, and it doesn't have to happen, right? It's with pickup games and recreational sports, or even just throwing a football in the backyard at a barbecue.
Yeah.
Right? I'm dealing with it now, actually. One of my guys
batting practice with the Blue Jays.
Right, there you go.
That was my fear. So, like, we're talking about one of my fears, basically, that I survived.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to be careful, and just not try to do too much. Like, this one guy was throwing a football, and he said go long, and he tried to hit a 40, 50-yard throw, and next thing you know, he goes, man, my shoulder hurts.
Yeah.
And
labrum torn.
Yeah, torn labrum, and maybe a torn, rotator cuff tendon.
And that's why I have you guys do power and speed work, because that's what that sport is. We still want you to be athletic. Maybe again, not playing, 3 7-inning softball games on the weekend.
Right.
Game speed, not a good idea.
Yeah. Unfortunately, just something that silly, having a beer, drinking, eating a hot dog and hamburger at a barbecue, throwing a football can put you out for 6 months,
Yeah. So
and that's a weird one.
it is. And that's a tough one because it's like we're doing all these physical labor, like all this physical activity to improve our physicality.
Yes.
And so again, my 30,000-foot view is this. And this is why Stu and I, to our own admittance, will say, you shouldn't just always follow my programming. You should always go bounce around. You should go do Stu stuff and bounce around, because the more diverse that you're training within the same good context, right? If you're just taking a lot of good programs and then using them as your program, great. You're going to be very athletic. But that's the saying is a lot of these things are encounters of this, like lifting too heavy too often, running too much too often. All these sort of things lead you to this guy that's throwing in the backyard, right, and hurts his arm. So
yeah,
be diverse in your training.
Yeah, another one, very common one, is playing basketball. That's an ankle breaker right there.
Yeah,
real easy. We had a guy that just
beach volleyball.
Yeah,
Summer's coming.
Oh yeah, that's another rotator cuff you're slamming.
They're just coming down and knees, ankles, right?
Yep.
And someone's foot.
Yep. We had a guy that is now going through shoulder surgery, playing softball, sliding in the second.
Right, doing the right thing, right? Slowing down, sliding, whatever. Yeah.
Yep, sliding in the second. Dislocated his shoulder.
If you're gonna do that stuff, it's like you're better off. Like our argument's like you're better off doing that, in selection. Obviously, you're not gonna be playing softball. I'm saying dislocating, getting hurt, whatever. But the point is you don't want to basically put yourself in a body cast and not do anything. You also have to be mindful of where you're at in your training too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I said, you're a month out from shipping. Might want to be a good cheerleader.
It's like let's say you're 6 months into a great training program, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, but at that 6 month point, you probably got a lot of new stressors you're still dealing with, a lot of adaptation. And to put yourself into something that is potentially a high velocity game speed, volleyball, softball, whatever, stick to Frisbee golf, which I'm not even putting my nose up at because I played a lot with my son. Yeah. My point is at some point you have to realize that the stress you're putting yourself onto is the physical priority.
Yeah. Yeah.
When that's the physical priority, that's the physical. It's like treat yourself like what a Major League Baseball player in season very likely is not going to go play a pickup game of basketball or softball or beach volleyball.
Or, every now and then you hear of a pro athlete that did that.
Yeah, or sets himself on fire on the 4th of July with fireworks. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So that's coming. It's like wear eye protection this 4th of July.
Right.
Don't be that person, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Worst case, it's like, they're going to say, wait, save it to the off season. But then you're like, listen, right now, folks, again, we'll just say, at some point you have to take yourself very seriously.
Yeah.
When you're in this pipeline, when you decide, a year out, 6 months out, you can put that stuff off for a year to focus on this.
Yeah. Good point. And how about this one? This one I'm guilty of too. There's several of these, by the way, I am guilty of doing. So I'm not making judgments on stuff I don't know. So here's another one. Working out with a friend who is in better shape than you are.
Your fit friend you're trying to keep up with,
right?
Or my side is guilty. Is I try to emasculate everybody else in the gym. You know what I mean? Like that was my guilty pleasure back then. That was a driving force for me. It was like working on a public gym was just lift heavier and harder than everyone else in here. It's like marking my territory.
Yeah,
anymore.
Yeah, and don't fall for it. That's what the guy's trying to do. He's trying to bring you into a workout and just crush you, right? I mean, it happens.
No, it's perfect.
Been on both ends of that one. And, and this is everything from technique and lifting that you're probably lacking. Maybe it's running mileage, even swimming, without some of the joint stability. I've seen guys, swim and dislocate their shoulder or separate their shoulder just from swimming, right? Because they do it wrong. So, little things that can cause tendinitis, shin splints, joint dislocations, can make you sore and unable to move for days. And worse, if you really get into this, you could get yourself a case of rhabdomyolysis really easy, and then spend a few days in the hospital. And then
that's really going to suck.
Oh, man. I mean, that's a bad one, and that happens a lot, guys.
Yeah, and here's the other one, guys. This wasn't part of our list, but I'm going to add this one. I'm going to add this one because it's super prevalent. Yeah. There are a lot of attractive women in gyms. I will say this just from my time in the gyms, and I'll say this just because I know I've become friends with a lot of, like, my girlfriend is a perfect example. She's one of the fittest humans I've been. And she is smoking hot, and she is fit. It's like I can see a lot of people trying to impress a woman like that, for example. I'm not saying that about my girlfriend, but it's like I've done that, right? But most of those women, they're not interested in hanging out with you, right? They're there to train too, probably. Yeah. So my point is, like, have the gym be social, but lift for you as well. Don't get carried away, because I separated my shoulder once showing off. I was push pressing 315 overhead, push pressing. And I separated my shoulder like an idiot.
Here's something that happened recently. One of our guys was getting ready to ship, and he brought a friend who was, all excited about joining the group and train with us. And, he went on this 4-mile run, just to time his 4-mile run before he leaves. And this new guy joined him. And I said, if you're not used to running, you might want to stay back here, maybe just run for 10 minutes and then get on the bike. Right. And he goes, no, I'm going to run with my buddy. And so that's what he did. And then sure enough, what has happened for the last month? He's had shin splints and knee tendinitis, because that was the first time he'd run 4 miles in probably about 5 years.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take a whole lot of miles to make you sore.
No.
Right.
Because you got to understand there's got to be recovery in the back end of that.
Yep.
But if a single acute bout is severe, just as Stu is explaining, all of a sudden there is no timeline for recovery, because you're like, man, tendinitis takes a long time.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is like that fine line of still being active but not pissing it off. That's exactly what I'm dealing with my right knee right now. So it's totally guilty. It's like too much volume too often, trying to, now I was added jujitsu in there and all these sort of things. And it's like, okay, I'm doing, like, what advice would Jeff give an athlete if I came to him? And it's like, that's what my girlfriend's like, what would you tell your athlete? And I'd be like, damn.
Yeah, my wife did the same thing to me the other day. She goes, what would you tell somebody right now looking at yourself?
Yeah.
Look at you.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's like –
take a rest day.
But I'm the guilty. Like, I'm a good guinea pig, and I know you are too. So, but it's like that's what it takes sometimes. It really does take someone's honest purview to go, hey, stop doing that. And that's really what Stu and I are, because we know you all are going to do this. But if we have that little voice in the head that's having you do a little bit less each year, a little bit less each month, then you're going to really progress. That's the difference. We don't need you to be robots, and we're not perfect.
Yep.
But be mindful of it, and you'll see a lot of more progress.
Yeah, and how about this one for the last one? And here's a big error that a lot of people make, is they're not taking rest days or mobility days.
Like real recovery day. That doesn't mean you have to sit on the couch, because Stu does, like, on Wednesdays, right? Like, what do you do on Wednesdays?
Yeah, I do a mobility day where it's just non-impact cardio, stretching, and foam rolling. That's it.
It's pure. You are elongating the tissue safely by pushing blood through it.
Yeah.
That is a good thing, right? You're basically mimicking activity, like intense activity, i.e. contraction, blood flow increase, so on. But the stimulus in the breakdown doesn't show up. But because the stimulus of activity shows up, your body will still release hormones and create a hormone chain of testosterone and insulin-like growth. It still happens. It's this, you still are creating this mechanism. It's like what you get with restricted blood flow, or you get it from float tank, right? You get this physiological benefit. And so by putting in this not so physical active day that he's doing, all you're doing is you're just flooding the body with nutrients, and it thinks it's got this huge trauma, but it doesn't. It just gets the nutrients from a perceived trauma. That's what tends to happen, and it happens because Stu is always working hard. His athletes are always working hard. So this stimulus comes, goes, oh my God, they're going to break us down again. The body dumps a ton of hormones into the blood. And the body goes, shit, he's not working out today. He goes, oh, too late. We've already released the hormones.
Yeah.
That's kind of how the inner dialogue goes with the nervous system. It's a bit of a hack.
And it's good. I mean, it goes right to recovery.
100% goes straight into recovery because your body isn't breaking down.
Right.
100%. Yeah.
Awesome.
So that's what we say, like, you know, even if you aren't a great swimmer, right? What we're saying, get compression garments on. Go stand in 5-foot water. Your legs are below 3 feet. You're essentially wearing a compression garment. Get moving, get stretching. I stretch in a pool, just I know Stu does.
Oh, tread.
Right? You're basically wearing compression garment in water. Yeah. So, and like I said, the treading the water is a great act of recovery. Foam rolling, all that stuff.
Yep. So anyway, treat yourself to a mobility day at least once a week, and you should end your workouts with little mini mobility days, so to speak. So, you know, you should follow up with some stretching on the back end, some non-impact activity, just, you know, kind of a cool down, 10 minutes. That's all it takes.
Yeah. One of the things I like doing, especially like on legs days and deadlift type days, like where it's a big compound movement, it's like, I may have progressed my weight up through the program, like my weight has increased on the machines and the bar and stuff. But in the end, like especially if I end with an RDL or something, I'll just go through the exercises again as I'm stripping the weight off. I'll strip the weight pretty much all the way off. You know, maybe I end up with 275 or 300 pounds on a bar. But I put 135 on at the end, and I might squat that a couple times and stretch back out.
Smart.
Right? And so I kind of use the exercises in conjunction with foam rollers and stuff at the end of my workout is just that. You know, it's like, oh my God, I got to bend over and put my shoes on. But if I go through a nice light squat and some lunging and some rotating on a foam roller and such, it doesn't like, oh my God, it's easy to get my shoes on, my squat shoes off. It's a lot easier.
There you go. I like that. That's really good. So here's the deal. The reason why we went through all these ways to injure yourself is that, you know, as you're preparing for these, you know, special ops selection programs, you are also trying to build mental toughness, and you constantly doubt in your head that you are fully prepared. And so what do? Right? You just go work out harder because you feel like you're not getting enough, right? You always doubt yourself that you're getting enough. My suggestion is trust the system, because here's the problem. There is a fine line between building mental toughness and being stupid, right? You can really hurt yourself, you know, relative to your, you know, personal ability, your current fitness levels, you know, and the time that you have invested in training. What I mean by that, not in a day, but in months, you know, in years, you know, what's your athletic history, all that matters, you know, and it's relative, you know, it's really relative to how you're going to be able to handle, you know, the type of challenges that are in front of you. But, you know, like I said, just, it's good to build mental toughness. It's good to do these gut checks, but, you know, make sure your gut checks have some form of progression into them. Don't just do a marathon because, you know, everybody else is going to do a marathon. And
I've been training super hard to be a SEAL. I'm going to go do this and validate all my training to show everyone how tough I am. Don't do that.
Yes, that hurts. And you'll be paying. And here's the problem. You know, we have guys that go beyond the marathon. They'll do the JFK 50 miler or some endurance race, because, you know, endurance races are mental challenges, you know, but they'll also break you. You know, you'll have feet problems, you'll have hip problems, you'll have shin problems, knee problems for months.
Yeah, you guys understand that much trauma, that much physical activity, even for the people that do this regularly, like again, the race, the ultra marathon that was done yesterday, I mentioned again, Chad Wright. He'll likely be in a hospital after doing that ultra marathon, as will many of the competitors. So just be mindful that there's a lot of it, but that's a choice he has made, right? He knows this. That's part of the competition. It's like, oh, after this ultra, I'll be in the hospital for 3 days. So I'll lose my fucking legs. Like that's the deal. That's the handshake he's made.
Yeah.
So we don't need, like, again, that's the hat off. Like, and I'm not saying to trying to be negative at all, folks. I'll be very, very clear. I support that behavior. I do. But that behavior is that sport.
Yes.
What you're trying to do is go to BUDS or SFAS or be a combat controller, whatever it is that is not necessary to endure that, to go through this. They're not one and the same.
No.
That's a decision he has made, the chat has made, because he is an exceptional human. He's already been through it.
Yeah.
So this is another way, whatever. This is his drug, folks.
Yeah.
So let's not compare an ultramarathoner and their capacity to endure to a young 20 or 18-year-old male or female trying to get to that point.
Yeah.
He got to this point because he's already forged himself in the processes that you guys are trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't overlook the value of what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say this, these accidents that can occur that we listed, training injuries, traumatic injuries, whatever they are, they're showstoppers, right?
Yep.
And they will stop you in your tracks for your progress. And, if you're really unlucky, they could very well disqualify you from, even attempting any of these tactical profession selection programs, period.
Yes. Yeah.
So
you bet. Yeah. No, I think that you guys, there's a lot of information that we've thrown at you, but understand that these aren't absolutes. These are just experiences that Stu and I, number one, have encountered for many of them, but also we're seeing it's in a weird sort of way of validating, because we're hearing some of the questions that Stu and I talk about. We talk about offline, going, man, we did the same mistake, had the same mistakes. So we're having these conversations with you all to say, yeah, we've done these mistakes and they did not serve us well. So if we can get you guys who are still active to go, oh, that's a mistake. Those guys were making mistakes. I don't want to do that anymore. We're trying to help you guys do the stuff right that we've encountered.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So injuries do happen, right? And sometimes they're just accidents and just being unlucky, but sometimes you bring them on yourself.
Yeah.
And if you can avoid those, you're going to be just that much better in your training and not have to take days off, months off, weeks
right.
off.
And there's something to really be said about this, folks, is like, once you get into the community, right? Like whatever community you're destined to get into, well, then you're like, then start it up, right? At that point, because again, there's something to be very said about this laser-like focus you have for the selection and the anxiety and the stress that comes along with it. And then you go do something to blow off steam that's intended well, but it drives the physical nature beyond what you can handle because of that current state of like, I'm going to go be a SEAL or whatever it is. Like you're laser focused, when you get into the community, yeah, go do all that stuff. Go do all those physical games that you used to like to play, those physical things, go rock climbing, snowboarding. Right at that point, you won't have that anxiety and you're less likely to probably get hurt as well, because
that's a good point.
You're like, I'm just here to really blow off steam because I am who I am.
Right.
And I need to leave my body armor at work. The best way for me to leave body armor at work is drive up to Mammoth every weekend like I used to and go snowboarding.
There you go.
I'm saying from experience, I didn't snowboard while I was at BUDS. I didn't snowboard while I was at jump school, right, in January, because I had November. When I got out of BUDS, I had mid-November Thanksgiving till January 4th off. I had an opportunity to go snowboarding in Colorado. But I was like, well, I got to go to jump school and SQT. The last thing I want, and I was a competent snowboarder. I still am very competent.
Yeah.
Snowboarding since I was 8.
Wow.
So, but I had to stop. I remember I had my snowboard with me because I could just drive to Big Bear. Big Bear, as you know, is covered in ice.
Yeah.
I didn't go.
Yeah, that's
right. I had my snowboard with me at BUDS, and I was like, "It's a bad idea." I had to, and I'm glad because I was like, I'm a competent snowboarder. Because a year later, when I was a SEAL, a buddy and I drove to Big Bear, who's also a SEAL. It was so icy. I did one run, knocked myself out on a tabletop jump, and I was like, that was it. When I left, I was out after that. I was like, imagine me doing that in BUDS.
Oh, man.
All weekend, I was just sick as hell because of a concussion. I couldn't have handled that during BUDS.
No.
Like having to clean the room and be focused and show up Monday morning ready. Fuck, I couldn't have done that. So we're having these conversations, folks, because we've made these mistakes.
No, that's a really great way to end it.
Yeah.
Jeff, that's a good little scenario that did occur, and it's a good lesson learned. You're smart enough to not do that while you're in the middle of training or before training. Before training could have screwed you up too.
Yeah.
So
put it to bed. Same thing is like I remember Andy Arabito a week before class up was like trying to teach me how to surf. Man, it beat the hell out of my knees. I was like, "Is this normal?" He's like, "Yeah, the knees get really bruised." And I was like, it's probably not a good idea for me to bruise the shit out of my knees before buds. And he's like, shit, I never thought about that. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So both of us were like, let's stop trying to teach you how to surf.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Right. So, yeah.
All right. Well, another easy day. Don't hurt yourself.
Don't do it.
We'll see you.
See you, Stu.